Part 27. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 261. Dong Dong. A knock on the door woke Hasakawa Ryo. She turned her head in panic and looked at the door of the health room, but the door was still like that. Only then did Lin Xian's voice sound. "Is everything okay, Hasakawa-san?" "Ah. It's okay." Hasakawa Ryo finally realized that she seemed to have left Ayada-san outside for a while. Thinking of this, she quickly got up and went to open the door. But just when she put her hand on the door handle, Hasakawa Ryo stopped, muttering something in her mouth, and paused for a few seconds before opening the door. But after seeing Lin Xian leaning against the wall outside the door, she instinctively lowered her head and whispered, "I'm sorry for causing trouble to Kingtian-san." Lin Xian smiled when he saw Ryo Hasakawa coming out and said, "It's okay. You didn't expect this to happen, but you can tell me if you have anything in the future. Don't force it." "Really?" Hasakawa Ryo suddenly raised his head and looked at Lin Xian's eyes full of hope. Lin Xian didn't expect her to react so strongly. He was too embarrassed to say what he had just prepared, so he could only smile and nod. As if feeling that his behavior was too abrupt, Hasakawa Ryo quickly lowered his head again and spoke in an incomprehensible whisper. "Is Hasakawa-san okay?" Hasakawa Ryo shook his head and said slightly panicked, "I'm fine. Oh, by the way, the school has notified your parents." Hasakawa Ryo suddenly became confused and turned around in a circle in a hurry. Upon seeing this, Lin Xian immediately comforted him, "It's okay. They seem to be still abroad. Even if they get back, they may not be able to come back so quickly." After hearing this, Ryo Hasakawa finally calmed down a little, but there was an indescribable feeling in her eyes when she looked at Lin Xian. Seeing that she had stabilized, Lin Xian continued to test, "If Hasakawa-san is not feeling well, we can talk about it later when we have time. Now I will send you home to have a good rest." Then let's go back to the classroom first. I still have some things to pick up, and Hasakawa-san also has something to pack." Seeing Hasakawa Ryo's timid look, Lin Xian added, "School is over now." Yeah, Hasakawa Ryo nodded and walked out of the health room. "Let's go then." Lin Xian closed the door of the health room and walked toward the classroom. Hasakawa Ryo followed after a pause for 2 or 3 seconds. But after walking a few steps, Lin Xian suddenly stopped, took out a pair of black-rimmed glasses with an eye cloth wrapped around the frame from his pocket, and said, "By the way, there's also this." Yeah, Hasakawa Ryo responded in a low voice, reached out to take the glasses, and hurriedly untied the glasses cloth and put them on. Lin Xian looked at her fussing and didn't say anything, nor did he go to help. Instead, he stood aside and didn't speak until she put on her glasses. "Teacher Remiyazune brought the clothes and everything for you, as well as these glasses." At that time, after he sent Hasakawa Ryo to the health room, he immediately informed Miyazune and asked her to inform Hasakawa Ryo's parents. "I just didn't expect it to get burned." After putting on the glasses, Hasakawa Ryo finally returned to his usual self and no longer panicked. Lin Xian didn't say much and continued walking to the classroom. It has been almost an hour since school ended. The ordinary returnees, tutoring parties, and laborers have all left. Most of the ones left are from some clubs, but these clubs have their own places, so on the school road there were not many people in sight at all. This will be beneficial to both Lin Xian and Hasakawa Ryo. As time goes by, Hasakawa Ryo gradually recovers, but it is definitely a little different from the Hasakawa Ryo that Lin Xian knew before. "Hasakawa-kun, please clean up first." "I'm going to the bathroom." After bringing Hasakawa Ryo to the classroom, he used the P-escape to sneak out of the classroom. And Hasakawa Ryo silently walked back to his seat, sat on it and packed up his things. She was not stupid. She had gone back with Lin Xian so many times, so how could she not know that Lin Xian would never bring a school bag home unless there were special circumstances? And she had always paid attention to it. Linzian didn't bring his school bag at all when he came here this morning. I just said those words to make myself feel better. Linzian had just reached the corner when a man suddenly appeared and reached out to catch him. But Linzian was already prepared and easily dodged it. Looking at the visitor, he complained, "Teacher Gongzong, what are you going to do? How's it going? Has Hosokawa-san stabilized?" Miyazun-ri, who was catching the air, didn't even bother to talk too much with Linzian and asked directly. Linzian looked back at the corridor, and then said to Gongzong-ri, "It's stable for the time being, but when will her parents come back? Hurry, hurry." Linzian heard this and complained, "You told me the same thing just now. I'm abroad, I just got on the plane, how could it be so fast?" Miyazun-ri didn't care about his complaints and kept looking towards the corridor. "Then why me? You are obviously the teacher, so you should be responsible for this matter." Linzian felt a little unhappy when he saw Gongzong-ri's attitude. It was not like this when he dragged him into the water just now. "Aren't you the only one in the class who is familiar with Hosokawa-san?" As if hearing Linzian's resentment, Miyazun-ri smiled and patted his shoulder. "We haven't contacted each other for a while, and we're not even close to each other." After hearing this, Miyazun-ri said in a teasing tone, "Then why did I hear that you were the first to rush up when Hosokawa-san fell?" "That's because I know what's going on with her." Linzian had no reaction to Miyazun-ri's words, but asked a question, "Do you remember what happened last time we met at the dessert shop outside?" "Remember?" Miyazun-ri didn't react at first, but her expression began to change after a moment or two of shock. "Could it be?" "That's right, it was a shock caused by allergies, not a physical exhaustion caused by a fever at all," Linzian said eloquently. "Would I have been able to survive that situation?" By the time they could find out, something had happened to Hosokawa-san. Zyuya didn't know why the otherwise good Ryo Hosokawa suddenly fell ill, but he knew a little bit about these things, not to mention that he and Ryo Hosokawa were all friends, so of course it was impossible to ignore him. It can be said that if he had waited another 2 or 3 minutes before going up, he would have been in big trouble. This is not the case at all. That's right, Linzian used some special techniques to hang Hosokawa Ryo's life, and then he deceived the school doctor, but he only recovered so quickly after sleeping for a few hours. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 262. As soon as these words came out, Gongzong-ri was dumbfounded. She originally thought it was the reason Linzian said before, but she didn't expect it to be like this. Moreover, she asked Linzian to accompany Ryo Hosokawa just because she was afraid that her fainting would make the already autistic girl even more autistic, so she asked Linzian to withstand it before her parents came over. "Then why didn't you tell me earlier? What if?" Linzian glanced at Gongzong-ri and said, "What are you afraid of? I won't let anything happen to her." "Yes you are." Gongzong-ri then remembered Linzian's ability. To be honest, Linzian is really not conspicuous in her eyes. If she doesn't pay attention, she will forget that there is this person in the class. I would only suddenly think of this strange student at night. Now it seems that he can indeed make people feel at ease. "Okay, I've been out for too long. Remember to send me a message when her parents arrive." Linzian estimated that it was almost time and walked back. Being out for too long will inevitably make Hosokawa Ryo feel uneasy, in case he thinks that he has let her go. What if it happens again? He didn't understand this at all. Who knew what Hosokawa Ryo was thinking? I'm back." As soon as Linzian came back, he saw Ryo Hosokawa playing with her mobile phone with her head down. She didn't feel anxious at all, and she didn't even react when she came back. "Are you thinking too much now?" However, Linzian didn't pay too much attention and walked directly back to his seat before any words were spoken. "Hosokawa-kun, let's go." Kingtian-kun is back." Hosokawa Ryo turned to look at Linzian, then picked up the school bag on the table and walked towards him. The whole process was almost as usual except for a little surprise at the beginning. Lin Ziyan didn't pay too much attention, it was better this way. Although it's past school time, it's already past 5 or 6 o'clock, and many people have already gotten off work. There are more people on the road than usual during school hours. The two of them were walking on the street. Ryo Hosokawa, who had been silent all the time, suddenly asked, "Aota-kun, can you tell me how I fainted? You walked out of the locker room and fainted not long after. I hadn't changed into your swimsuit yet, so the teacher asked me to send you to the health room. Then teacher Rimiazun came. As for the rest, I don't know." When Lin Ziyan spoke, he put himself aside, trying to weaken his sense of existence. "Did I say anything after we got to the health room? I don't know about this. After I sent you to the health room, the school doctor and teacher Miyazun retook over. Your things were also brought over by the teacher, and I only called me over to look at you after the teacher had something to do and left after school." Yes, Lin Ziyan specifically added, fearing that Ryo Hosokawa might think too wildly. "Except for having contact with you when I sent you to the health room, I haven't had any contact with you since." Seeing Lin Ziyan desperately trying to shirk the situation, Ryo Hosokawa didn't know whether to cry or laugh, so he could only lower his head to hide his expression. "Aota-kun," Hosokawa Ryo's subtle voice sounded. Lin Ziyan lowered his head and glanced at Ryo Hosokawa, who had been following him, and asked, "What are you doing? Can I go to your house for dinner?" As soon as she finished speaking, Hosokawa Ryo felt her heart beating violently, and her entire brain was echoing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Lin Ziyan, who noticed the change in Ryo Hosokawa, quickly replied, "Okay, what's the point of this?" But after hearing these words, Hosokawa Ryo suddenly stopped where he was, and the skull bag he was holding fell to the ground. Lin Ziyan had a very bad premonition after seeing her, so he could only walk back to her and asked cautiously, "What's wrong with Hosokawa-san?" He spoke softly now, for fear that if he spoke louder, she would fall to the ground again. Just when he got closer, Hosokawa Ryo stretched out her hand with unusual ferocity and grabbed his clothes. Lin Ziyan felt that if his territory hadn't been stable enough, he would have been grabbed by her now. His natural power was really powerful. Hosokawa-san, calm down and tell me what you have to say." Lin Ziyan didn't dare to irritate her. This was a street. If someone misunderstood him, he would explode. Tomorrow he would find the title "Shock" on the internet. A man and a woman actually did such a thing in public. Article. However, Hosokawa Ryo's hand did not let go of his, but trembled slightly. "Are you okay, Hosokawa-san?" Lin Ziyan looked around, but fortunately the people coming and going were in a hurry, so no one noticed the two of them. I'm sorry." Hosokawa Ryo's slightly trembling voice came. "What's wrong?" It's okay." Lin Ziyan was helpless and could only let Hosokawa Ryo go. "Can Kingtian-kun forgive me?" Hosokawa Ryo suddenly looked up at him. Lin Ziyan looked at Hosokawa Ryo's eyes with mist, and felt as if she would cry if he said something wrong. Haha, easy to say. Of course he knew what Hosokawa Ryo was talking about, but Lin Ziyan, who had just gotten rid of her, didn't want to cause further anger, but he couldn't say it directly, so he could only make a haha, trying to brush it off. "Isn't it still possible? Sure enough, I went too far." After hearing his answer, Hosokawa Ryo loosened his hands and let go of Lin Ziyan's clothes. There was a forced bitter smile on his face. He murmured, "It doesn't matter if Mr. Qingtian doesn't forgive me." But before she could finish her words, Lin Ziyan saw the mist in her eyes quickly condense into bean-sized tears, falling like crystals and then breaking on the ground. Looking at Hosokawa Ryo's tearful appearance, Lin Ziyan suddenly felt that he seemed to have gone too far. After all, although Hosokawa Ryo was a little stupid and did things a little foolishly, her starting point was good. he had been ignoring her and didn't even give her a chance to apologize. What is Hosokawa doing? I didn't say I don't forgive you at this time. Lin Zion could only say nice things, because the last straw that overwhelmed him had come. The two of them had attracted the attention of some passers-by by standing there for so long, and if they continued like this, there would really be problems. Really? King Tian-kun is willing to forgive me. Hosokawa Ryo seemed to have grabbed a life-saving straw. As long as King Tian-kun can forgive me, I can do anything. Originally, it was okay, and passers-by would at most look sideways and continue to walk away. Now when Hosokawa Ryo said this, the people around him looked over. Let's go back first. Seeing that the situation was not right, Lin Zion picked up his skull bag with one hand, held Hosokawa Ryo's hand with the other hand, and ran forward, running out of the street before causing a larger commotion. Are you okay? Lin Zion looked back, only to see Hosokawa Ryo looking at him with burning eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 263. After the two looked at each other, Ryo Hosokawa lowered her head again, and a faint sound came after a long time. And Lin Zion had already let go of her hand and said, let's go. On the way, neither of them mentioned what happened just now, and they were silent like two strangers walking side by side. Only when they reached the intersection did Lin Zion break the silence and asked, what does Hosokawa want to eat? Huh? Ryo Hosokawa seemed to be startled, and her steps that were originally following were suddenly messed up. She raised her head and looked at Lin Zion in panic. Lin Zion smiled gently when he saw her like this, and comforted her. It's nothing, I said we are almost there. At this time, Ryo Hosokawa reacted and looked forward. She knew that as long as she passed the intersection, it would not be far from Lin Zion's home. It was just that she was thinking about something just now and didn't pay attention. After entering the small road in the residential area, there were not many people walking, especially near Lin Zion's home. Until now, there is only their family. It is worth mentioning that the old house has been renovated almost, and it will be completed in a few days. In fact, it can't be said to be a renovation, it can be said that it was directly flattened and rebuilt. However, the garage was built but one car was missing. What car should it be? The two people were thinking about their own things, but walking together seemed very natural. Lin Zion took out the key and opened the door after returning home. The whole process was completed in one step. However, Hosokawa Ryo didn't know why she stood at the door and hesitated for a long time and didn't dare to come in. In response, he could only say, come in, classmate Hosokawa. Hearing Lin Zion's words, Hosokawa Ryo walked in, looking around, as if she was afraid that someone would appear next to her. Seeing her, Lin Zion felt like laughing but couldn't laugh. He just suddenly felt that Hosokawa Ryo was a little pitiful. It should be the last time that made her have this instinctive reaction. When Hosokawa Ryo walked to the entrance to change shoes, she found that Lin Zion had helped her carry her skull bag all the way. Just now, I was in a trance and thought that my skull bag was lost. Is Uni-chan back? Reina's voice came from the living room. Lin Zion glanced at Hosokawa Ryo and replied, I brought Hosokawa to play. Because he had not originally planned to have Hosokawa Ryo come here for dinner, Lin Zion did not tell Oda and her daughter about it. He just said that he would be home later because of something at school and asked them not to wait for him. Now Hosokawa Ryo not only woke up early, but also asked to come to his house for dinner halfway. How could Lin Zion have time to inform them? When Lin Zion was on the way, he even thought of the reaction of Oda and her daughter. Sure enough, after he said this, Reina hurried out of the living room. But the strange thing is that she only glanced at Hosokawa Ryo and then set her eyes on Lin Zion, and the expression on her face looked a little resentful. Lin Zion could only laugh dryly and walked in, and turned back to ask, what would Hosokawa want to drink? At this time, Hosokawa Ryo moved his eyes away from Reina and said, no need to bother, ordinary water will do. Lin Zion went in first without thinking much, leaving the two of them in the entrance. Lin Zion couldn't care about the two of them now. He had to tell Michiko about this first, so that she would contact Hosokawa Ryo instead of himself. After Lin Zion walked away, the two looked at each other again, but neither of them spoke, and the atmosphere began to slowly become strange. But this atmosphere was soon broken by Michiko, who came out of the kitchen. Hey! It's Hosokawa, come in quickly. Michiko greeted him with a smile, and it seemed that she had forgotten what happened last time, and her enthusiasm was a little too much. Looking at Michiko's smiling face, Hosokawa Ryo subconsciously took a step back, but found that Michiko's hand was already on her hand. Why are you standing here? Come in and sit down. Ah, hello, auntie. Hosokawa Ryo did not resist, but let Michiko pull her in. But Rina had a lot of questions in her head when she saw all this. After Michiko pulled Hosokawa Ryo into the living room, she put a glass of water in front of her and said, I'm afraid Rina will drink those drinks, so we didn't prepare them at home. Please don't mind, classmate Hosokawa. Looking at this gentle woman in front of him, he fell into her hands last time, but her attitude made Hosokawa Ryo have to greet her with a smile. It's okay, just do whatever you want. Seeing that Lin Zion hadn't come out, he asked, what did Qingtian do? Michiko smiled and sat next to Hosokawa Ryo, saying, I was just cooking. Qingtian was afraid that what I made was not to your taste, so he did it himself, so he let me come out to accompany you. It must be said that Hosokawa Ryo was very happy to hear Michiko's words, and his original vigilance was slowly relaxed at this time. I'm going upstairs to do my homework. Reina said this and went upstairs. Hosokawa Ryo followed Reina all the way, and then saw the door at the corner of the stairs. He froze for 2 or 3 seconds before reacting. It would be great if I had a daughter as obedient as you, Hosokawa-san, instead of Reina, who makes me worry about her every day. Hosokawa Ryo looked at Michiko on the side, and then reacted and said, Aunt Michiko can just call me Ryo, Aota-kun also calls me that at school. Ryo is a good name. Michiko smiled inexplicably and asked, I've never heard Qingtian talk about school. Can Ryo tell me about it? Okay. Although I don't know why Michiko asked this, she still has a certain understanding of the school. As the two of them talked, Lin Zion came out from the kitchen and said, okay, come and eat. Looking at the two of them like this, Lin Zion knew that his choice was not wrong. Sure enough, only women know how to deal with women. But he didn't see Reina, so he asked, Reina went upstairs. Well, she went upstairs to do her homework. Michiko took over and answered. Then I'll go and call her down. Just when he was worried that he had no chance to talk to Reina about this, Lin Zion went upstairs after hearing it. Reina, I'm coming in. Lin Zion knocked on the door, and when he heard no sound from inside, he turned the doorknob with his hand, and sure enough, the door was locked. Lin Zion said with a smile, Reina, open the door quickly, it's time to eat, don't keep the guests waiting for you. Then Lin Zion could hear the tap-tap sound of slippers walking. Then the door opened, and Reina poked her head out from the crack of the door and said, Guest. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 264. Yes, come out quickly, it's time to eat, Lin Zion said gently. Why did you bring her back, Ani-I-chan? This woman doesn't have any good intentions, Reina said slyly while hiding behind the door. She's a little unwell today, and I was asked to take care of her before her parents come back. Lin Zion reached out and gently pushed the door open. Come out quickly, or your mother will come to find you later. Lin Zion did not choose to tell Lin Quan. She was not as measured as Michiko, and it was useless to tell her some things. She didn't know whether Lin Xian's words had an effect or whether Michiko's deterrent effect on her was still there. After hearing this, Reina walked out obediently. Just looking at her expression, it seemed like she was still struggling with something. Haha. What are you doing? Lin Xian laughed when he saw her like this. Don't do this in front of others, it makes us look very rude. Oh, Reina replied perfunctorily and ran downstairs. At this time, Lin Xian took out his mobile phone and took a look before walking away. By the time he and Reina went down, Michiko had already prepared everything, and Hosokawa Ryo was already sitting on her seat. Lin Xian knew from the way she looked that she must be hungry, and said quickly, "Eat, you're welcome, there's just no good food." "Yes," Hosokawa Ryo replied forcefully, without any trace of the submissive look he had just shown. Under the deliberate arrangements of Lin Xian and Michiko, the meal went smoothly. It was just that after dinner, Lin Xian was forced to stay with Hosokawa Ryo. Although he wanted to send her home, there was no news from Miyazune-ri, and against a classmate like Hosokawa Ryo, this kind of driving away people, he was too embarrassed to say it. Of course, he didn't know that Ryo Hosokawa had already contacted her mother when she was in the classroom, and the operation temporarily calmed her down. The plane was still a plane, but the return from Europe would not arrive until tomorrow at the earliest. This is why Hosokawa Ryo dares to stay here like this. She has no worries at all. This was a rare opportunity to get in touch with Lin Xian, and she didn't want to waste it like this. "It's already getting late, Kingtian-kun, why don't you send Ryo back?" Michiko walked out of the kitchen, wiping her wet hands on her clothes as a habit, and reminded her when she saw the two of them still chatting awkwardly in the living room. Lin Xian immediately took the words and said to Ryo Hosokawa, "I'll take you back first, otherwise it's too late and it's not safe." At this point, Hosokawa Ryo couldn't say anything more and could only nod stiffly in acquiescence. Lin Xian cast an admiring glance at Michiko, who was a teammate compared to Miyazune-ri. He would have said this even a little later, because it was impossible for him to leave Hosokawa Ryo here overnight. He had done everything he could, which was considered to be the most benevolent thing. If Miyazune-ri is worried, then send her to her home. After a brief thought, Ryo Hosokawa accepted the decision and said with a smile, "I still need to trouble Aota-kun to send me back. Anyway, I can't say a lot of things here, so I might as well say it outside and see if I can get Kingtian-kun's understanding. It's okay, the journey is not far, just think of it as a walk." Lin Xian stood up and walked towards the door. After seeing this, Ryo Hosokawa hurriedly stood up and said to Michiko, "Aunt Michiko, I'm leaving first." "Well, be careful on the road." Michiko smiled and nodded, watching Ryo Hosokawa leave. The two of them were walking on the road under the weak street light. Lin Xian uncharacteristically started chatting with Hosokawa Ryo, but they only talked about food, so Hosokawa Ryo couldn't say anything at all. When she came to her senses, she realized that she had already arrived at the door of the apartment. "You go in by yourself, I won't go up." "Hey. Aota-kun, why don't you come up and sit down?" Hosokawa Ryo realized that he seemed to have missed an opportunity, and quickly thought of a way to make up for it. "No, if you don't feel well today, you need to go to bed early." "I won't go up and disturb you." Lin Xian politely declined Hosokawa Ryo's invitation, and then added, "Go to bed early. If you have anything, you can contact me." Lin Xian suddenly paused before continuing, "If you have any urgent matters, please contact me." Originally, he wanted to ask Hosokawa Ryo to contact Miyazune-ri if anything happened, but after thinking about it, if there was really a problem, he could just collect the body for her when Miyazune-ri arrived. And based on his understanding of Miyazune-ri, it would not be a problem for him in the end. Therefore, by directly eliminating the middleman Miyazune-ri who earns the price difference, the problem may be solved earlier. Logically speaking, there should be no problem, but who knows? Reality does not follow logic. Lin Xian said this, and Hosokawa Ryo could only walk to the apartment reluctantly. It was only 3 steps away from turning around. People who didn't know better thought it was some kind of farewell drama. The infrastructure in such small apartments is generally poor, with only stairs. By this time, most people had returned, and lights were on in many places in the apartment, but for some reason Hosokawa Ryo always felt empty, as if something was missing. In response to this, she glanced outside every floor she walked. When she saw Linzian still below, she continued walking up. Finally, walking turned into a trot. Even though Ryo Hosokawa intended to delay, the road was so long, and it didn't take long for him to reach his room. Looking out from the corridor at this time, Linzian was still standing below looking up. Although she didn't want Linzian to leave, Hosokawa Ryo didn't want him to wait so long, so she had to wave her hand and signal that she was here. Linzian downstairs waved his hand after seeing this, and then pointed to his phone to signal. Hosokawa Ryo smiled and retreated into the corridor, with his whole back against the door. The two people's sight was disconnected again. After a long time, Hosokawa Ryo slowly walked out, but she only saw Linzian's gradually receding back. Strangely enough, after Linzian left, she didn't feel that kind of loss, but a warm and sweet feeling surged in her heart. Especially when Linzian looked at her when he saw her coming up just now, Hosokawa Ryo felt like she was going to melt. But before she had time to think about it, the phone on her body suddenly rang. Thinking of the previous agreement with her mother, Hosokawa Ryo quickly took out the key to open the door. The whole action was fast and smooth, and there was no feeling of clumsiness around Linzian at all. He closed the door with his backhand, quickly tidied up his appearance and took out his mobile phone, but the note on it was not mother, but Ching Tian. These 2 words instantly brought Hosokawa Ryo back to her original state, and she hurriedly slid the screen to answer the call. "What's wrong? So long." Hearing Linzian's voice, Hosokawa Ryo hurriedly replied, "Just getting ready to take a shower." As she spoke, Hosokawa Ryo's voice disappeared again. Linzian on the other side of the phone heard this and slowly said, "It's good that you're okay. Although we have exchanged phone numbers, I'm afraid you don't remember it on your phone, so I called to ask. You go and do your work." "I don't have anything to do." "Well, I remember King Tian's phone number," Hosokawa Ryo said as if she wanted to prove something. After a few pleasantries, the two hung up the phone. Hosokawa Ryo held the phone in both hands and murmured, "Ching Tian is so gentle. My retirement life in Neon." Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 265. Linzian's figure shuttled under the street lights, alternating between light and darkness. But after hanging up the call with Hosokawa Ryo, the phone in his hand did not end directly, but dialed another number. Beep, beep, beep. "Moses, is that Ching Tian? I have sent Hosokawa Ryo back to her home." Linzian said the matter without any nonsense. Okay, I know, is Ryo okay?" Gong Zong Liwi on the other side of the phone frowned, but did not say anything. "It's okay, I can eat 3 bowls of rice, what can happen? Even if there is something wrong, I guess I'm hungry." Linzian said that even he laughed. Hosokawa Ryo is really good at eating, this is not a joke. He originally had reserved an extra portion, but he didn't expect that Hosokawa Ryo ate his portion in the end, and he only ate 1 bowl of rice. This is a mistake made by him as the host. He didn't think anything, just thought it was funny. Such an interesting person is rare. "I just contacted her parents. Now they haven't caught the plane yet. They have to transfer back, at least until tomorrow. You can take her back. You should have her phone number. If you have anything, please contact her." "I've done what I should do." Linzian didn't bother her and directly separated himself from the matter. "Sorry, I'm bothering you. I thank you on behalf of Liang." "Hey. That's not right, you are not Gong Zong Liwi, but Gongzonmibu Linzian listened to the words on the other side and felt that this was not what Gongzongliwi would say. "What are you talking about?" Gongzongliwi on the other side exploded when she heard his words. Originally, she thought that Linzian had worked hard all day today, so she deliberately suppressed her tone a little, but she didn't expect Linzian to not appreciate it at all and complained about her. Maybe she spoke too loudly just now, and Gongzonmibu's voice came from the next room. Who are you talking to? It's okay. I'm on the phone." Gongzongliwi heard her sister's voice and quickly restrained herself. But before Gongzongliwi could say anything more, a voice came from the other end of the phone. "Yeah, that's right, you are Gongzongliwi." Listening to Linzian's slightly arrogant voice, Gongzongliwi's hand holding the phone turned red. But in the end, she still endured it. Even if she was unhappy with Linzian, she had to admit that if he hadn't been there this time, she would be in trouble. A student had an accident. Although it was not her class, she had some responsibilities as a class teacher that she could not shirk. Even her sister couldn't protect her. She could also hear that Linzian was mocking her for not taking action and not being as reliable as her sister Gongzonmibu. She admitted this because she was indeed panicked at the time. She had never encountered such a thing and didn't know how to deal with it. Now thinking back, she seemed to have done everything according to Kingtian's words, whether it was notifying parents or comforting students. "Nothing, I'll hang up." The voice from the phone interrupted her thoughts, and before she could respond, the phone rang with a busy tone. Gongzongliwi put down the phone silently and looked at the call record on it. Ryo Hosokawa came out of the bathroom wearing a loose plain pajamas, with a white towel wrapped around her head. When she came out, she pulled off the towel on her head, and her hair, which was originally wrapped, spread out. A faint fragrance spread out, and the originally small room was soon filled with this fragrance. Compared with the short hair that just reached her shoulders at that time, Ryo Hosokawa's hair is now over her shoulders, and the slightly damp hair gives people a shiny feeling under the light. After taking a bath, Ryo Hosokawa changed her previous decadence and looked energetic. She also had a faint smile on her face, and her whole person was filled with happiness. Ryo Hosokawa with and without glasses is two different people. The most prominent change is the eyes. Ryo Hosokawa picked up the mobile phone on the side, ran to the bed and rolled on it. She did not forget the appointment with her mother today, playing with her mobile phone while waiting for her mother's call. Not long after, the mobile phone interface suddenly switched to the phone, and she answered the call almost instantly. "Mother. I'm sorry to have worried you." Hosokawa Ryo spoke very fluently, and I don't know how many times I have practiced it, as if it was a subconscious answer. There was silence on the other side of the phone, and then there was a low sob, and there was a male voice next to him saying something, as if comforting. Mother. Hosokawa Ryo's tone suddenly slowed down, as if he was carefully testing, and as if he was worried. The sobbing on the other side gradually disappeared, and a slightly hoarse voice came over, asking, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I made Mother worried. "Why did you faint? Is it because of what happened last time?" The tone of the other side began to become fierce, and said viciously, "I shouldn't have let those people go so easily. I want to let them know how powerful my Hosokawa family is." "Mother, don't be angry, I'm fine." Hosokawa Ryo's originally confident and stable tone gradually changed back to the previous timidity. Hosokawa Hissy on the other side of the phone was no longer in that slutty look after hearing his daughter's words, but slowly recovered. "I'm glad you're okay. Your father and I will be back in Neon tomorrow morning. Don't be afraid if anything happens. We will definitely take care of it. Don't worry, Mother, I'm really fine. I just ate less this morning and fainted from hunger. Now I'm fine." Hosokawa Ryo carefully tried, "Don't disrupt your travel plans because of me." "No. We will arrive in Neon tomorrow morning," Hosokawa Hissy said firmly, not giving Hosokawa Ryo a chance to persuade. "I'm really fine." I ate 3 bowls of rice tonight. Although her appetite has always been criticized by her mother, Hosokawa Ryo knows that this is the best way to convince her parents. Okay, don't worry about us. Go to bed early tonight. Our plane is about to take off. Hosokawa Hisi was about to hang up the phone, and Hosokawa Yuji, who had been standing by, saw it and hurriedly wanted to snatch the phone, saying, "Wait. I haven't said it yet." But when he got the phone, he found that the screen was black. "Honey, what are you doing? I haven't even talked to my daughter yet," Hosokawa Yuji complained. "The plane hasn't even taken off yet." "Do you remember what happened last time?" Hosokawa Hisi ignored Hosokawa Yuji's complaints and asked a question instead. Hosokawa Yuji was silent for a while before slowly saying, "Of course I remember. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 266. At that time, Ryo was in a coma for 3 days before she woke up. According to the doctor, she almost couldn't wake up. She survived because of her strong physical fitness. But this time she woke up so quickly and was so energetic. More importantly, she wanted to stop us from going back. Hosokawa Hisi didn't look out of control like before. Instead, she was a little scary. Maybe it's just like Ryo said, she fainted from hunger because she didn't eat. Of course, she will be fine after eating a full meal. Hosokawa Yuji on the side seemed a little indifferent. He was originally worried about his daughter, but after hearing that his daughter had eaten 3 bowls of rice, he knew that she was fine. She even sounded happy. "I think she must have eaten well tonight." Hosokawa Hisi reached out to poke Hosokawa Yuji's head. "Did you forget that the teacher told us that she fainted during the swimming class?" "Yeah, I understand." Hosokawa Yuji nodded in response after a moment of silence. "Why don't you go find your friends and check what's going on with Ryo at school?" Hosokawa Hisi complained with a look of disgust. "I said none of your friends are reliable." "I'll go ask him first." Hosokawa Yuji didn't say much and picked up his phone. After hanging up the phone, Hosokawa Ryo turned over and lay on the bed with her arms and legs spread out, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes, but suddenly she grabbed the pillow next to her with one hand, hugged it and buried her head in it, making a strange laugh. She didn't care why she fainted or other things at all. Her mind was full of Lin Ziyan's affairs now. She was actually able to talk again. As long as she could talk, she would have a chance to be forgiven, and she could start over after being forgiven. This time she won't lose again. Just thinking of the scene of Lin Ziyan sending her back tonight, Hosokawa Ryo felt that she was overwhelmed by happiness, the kind of suffocation. Soon a phone call woke up the illusion of Hosokawa Ryo. Because of this incident, the phone that usually didn't ring rang several times today. But when she saw the name on the screen, Ryo Hosokawa sat up quickly and answered the phone carefully. "Moshi Moshi, is this Ryo Hosokawa?" A female voice came from the other end of the phone. "Yes," Ryo Hosokawa answered quickly. "What does Mayaso want to talk to me about?" "Nothing, just asking if you are feeling unwell." Mayaso tried to make her voice calmer, not pretending to be a teacher, but talking like usual. "It's okay, I'm fine now, please don't worry about me." "I'm glad you're fine. Where are you now? Do you want me to go see you?" "No need. I'm at home now." Ryo Hosokawa was a little flustered. The files she left for the school were not here. If Mayaso came up and found that she rented a house by herself, her parents would know about it, and then something would definitely happen. "Are you okay?" Mayaso also heard that Ryo Hosokawa seemed to have something wrong, and asked quickly. "It's okay, I found that I seemed to have left something at school and didn't bring it back." Ryo Hosokawa quickly changed the subject. After hearing this, Gongzong Liwi didn't think much about it, because Lin Ziyan told her that he would send the person home, and she believed it. In her impression, Hosokawa Ryo was a very honest child and would not lie to her. The words just now reminded Hosokawa Ryo of something, and she asked, "Teacher, can you tell me what happened after I fainted?" This. Gongzong Liwi didn't know whether she should say it for a while. "Teacher, can you tell me? I want to know." You do have the right to know this, but I don't know much. It was classmate Shigeki Aoda who took you to the health room. When I went there, you were fine. I didn't do anything except helping you get your clothes back." "Did Aoda take me to the health room?" Hosokawa Ryo confirmed again. "Yes, it was indeed Qingtian who took you there at that time. The teacher in the health room can prove it." Miyazaki-ri didn't care too much and continued with her words, "Later, Mr. Matsushita Haru from the swimming class also came to see you. According to her, Shigeki Aoda was the first to go up and take you to the health room. What did Qingtian do afterwards?" Miyazaki-ri suddenly understood Hosokawa Ryo's intention, deliberately concealed part of the truth, and said, "Didn't he accompany you in the health room all the time? After the swimming class, school is over, and there are no classes." Hosokawa Ryo on the other end of the phone was stunned, and her mind was full of what she had just said. The person who rushed up was indeed him, and it was also him who picked me up, and it was also him who accompanied me in the health room. Qingtian-kun really cares about me. Now Hosokawa Ryo has already imagined the whole incident in his mind, from Lin Ziyan rushing to her to waking up, and then sending her back. Looking through the filter, Lin Ziyan was meticulous and considerate throughout the whole process. Whether this was true or not was no longer within her consideration. The phone fell silent for a moment. Miyazaki-ri, who could not hear any response, called out several times before she finally called back Hosokawa Ryo's soul. "Ryo-san." "Teacher, I'm here." Hosokawa Ryo came back to her senses and quickly responded. "Are you okay?" "No, I'm thinking I might not be able to go to school tomorrow." "It's okay. I'll ask for leave for you. You can go to bed early. I won't disturb you. If you need anything, just call the teacher." Miyazun-ri agreed casually. Whatever the reason for this incident, Hosokawa Ryo should disappear for a while. Let this matter cool down, otherwise it will be more troublesome. In fact, even if Hosokawa Ryo didn't bring it up, she would still suggest that Hosokawa Ryo take leave and rest at home for some time. Now it would be easier for Miyazun-ri if she brought it up first. As the phone was hung up, Hosokawa Ryo fell down on the bed, then rolled on the bed while making a strange laugh. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night for Ryo Hosokawa. Today was not an easy day for Miyazun-ri, because her sister knew that a girl fainted in the class she managed, and she was still waiting for criticism. "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Miyazun Miho pointed at Miyazun-ri. The expression on her face showed that she was almost on the verge of explosion. She actually heard this from someone else instead of her own sister, especially when that girl's name came up. She has the right to check the student status information. There are some things that she did not tell her sister. The person named Hosokawa Ryo has a background. Of course, there are many people with backgrounds in this school, but there must be no trouble with such a few, otherwise even if they are implicated, they will not be able to bear it. "She's fine, I just called her," Miyazun-ri retorted unconvinced. "Is everything okay?" Her younger sister's attitude directly offended her, and she yelled at Miyazun-ri, "It's okay. Why would the superiors ask about it? How many times have I told you, if you have anything to do, tell me first." Miyazun-ri didn't say anything and just let Miyazun Miho speak. She really didn't say anything about this on purpose. If Lin Ziyan hadn't directed her to save the situation, she might have turned to Gongzongmibyu, and the first thing she thought of at that time was her sister. But after following Lin Ziyan's command to handle the matter, she did not choose to tell Gongzongmibyu because she was afraid that she would be worried about herself. Miyazune Miho looked at the silent Miyazune Ri. After scolding her, most of her anger had disappeared. After all, she was still her biological sister. She couldn't stand by and watch something happen. She could only say calmly, "Find someone tomorrow, come with me to that girl's house and see what the problem is. I've already taken care of it. I will go visit myself tomorrow without you going." Do you know how many big shots with the surname Hosokawa there are in the country? Miyazune walked forward and held Miyazune Ri's face in her hands, saying with hatred, "Those rich people won't do anything because they have nothing to do, forget it, you know." Miyazune Miho spoke with a bit more sadness. Unknowingly, her eyes were filled with tears. She was like an ant in front of such a big shot. Seeing her sister's appearance, Miyazune Ri also realized that she knew which Hosokawa family her sister was talking about. When she realized it again, her sister had already hugged her. "My sister is fine. Hosokawa Ryo is fine and nothing will happen to her." Miyazune Ri could only do her best to comfort her sister. She didn't expect that her sister, who was always strong in front of her, would cry in this situation. Something she had never seen before. At that moment, Miyazune Ri thought of that man. As long as she asked him for help, things might be fine. Miyazune Ri seemed to be grasping at a life-saving straw. Miho Miyazune also has a story, but I don't know if I can write about it. My retirement life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 267. Ring ring ring. Ring ring ring. The rapid ringtone broke the tranquility of the early morning. Ryo Hosokawa, who was originally lying on the bed, turned over and held down the phone. He raised his head and glanced at the time on the screen, then turned over and sat up. Ryo Hosokawa, who had just woken up, was still a little confused. She yawned and rubbed her messy hair with both hands. After sitting on the bed for a while, she finally woke up. She stood up and opened the window. The cool air outside the house hit her face to face, which made her sober. Looking at the street with morning fog outside, Hosokawa Ryo was stunned. "Smash it and turn around. It's only 5 o'clock now, and the only people who get up at this hour are housewives who have to prepare breakfast for their children and husbands." Although she had to prepare breakfast and lunch by herself before, she wouldn't get up so early. Today, she was like this because she had to rush back to another home before her parents came back. It's just that she was a little excited last night and she didn't even know when she fell asleep, so she was in a daze now. Normally, it would take half an hour to complete the washing process, but today she was ready to go out in just 10 minutes. There were not many people on the street at this hour, and as I walked through the residential area, I didn't see a few houses with lights on. Ryo Hosokawa walked to the door of Lin Ziyan's house and looked inside. He saw nothing, but the kitchen light seemed to be on. "Is it Aunt Michiko?" Hosokawa Ryo took a few steps and left. She doesn't pass by here when she goes home, but she just wants to come and have a look. And now she's going home. Because there were few cars at this time, Hosokawa Ryo could only walk back. Fortunately, the distance was not very far, and it was not yet 6 o'clock when she arrived. Returning to this small single-family villa, I don't know why Hosokawa Ryo always feels empty. It's not even as comfortable as the single apartment she rented. But thinking that her parents would be back soon, she quickly made some preparations to avoid letting them see that she had not been back to live here for a while. After all the preparations, time also passed, but before she could complete her disguise, there was the sound of keys opening the door, and the sound of voices. This voice was all too familiar to Ryo Hosokawa. "Leo!" There was an exclamation, and when Hosokawa Ryo reacted, a figure rushed towards her, but she was pulled back as soon as she started, and scoldings also came immediately. "Be careful about your image in front of your daughter." Ryo Hosokawa saw the two and greeted them, "Father, Mother." "Okay. Okay. Just hope you're okay." Hosokawa Yuji came over and looked at Hosokawa Ryo. His bloodshot eyes looked a bit ferocious. Coupled with the tired expression on his face, a tired middle-aged man appeared in front of Hosokawa Ryo. Hosokawa felt distressed immediately. She also knew that her parents were worried about her, so she quickly said, "I have nothing to do. Don't worry about me. Please ask your father and mother to rest first. Stop talking, those small countries don't even have planes flying to Neon. They want us to transfer several flights." Yuji Hosokawa held his waist with both hands and stretched back. "Go away. Don't put more burden on your daughter." Hisey Hosokawa pushed Yuji Hosokawa away and came to Hosokawa Ryo. He gently held Hosokawa Ryo's face with his hand and looked at it. But suddenly Hosokawa Hisey reached out and hugged him, and couldn't help but murmured, "It's all my fault, why did I forget? How did I forget?" The words gradually became choked and finally turned into sobs. "In the past, my mother was very tough, but now she is really unable to handle it. She can only comfort her, I'm fine. Don't worry, mother, I'm really fine." When Yuji Hosokawa next to him saw this scene, he just stepped forward and patted his wife on the back, comforting him, "Isn't Ryo okay? Don't worry." "Ani-chan, what's going on?" Reina asked curiously, looking at Chiu's confused look. "Do you remember Ryo Hosokawa-san from last night?" Lin Zion did not directly say that he was curious about how those idiot classmates who went to school today would react, but instead mentioned Hosokawa Ryo. "Remember what's wrong?" Linnea's tone suddenly turned a bit resentful, and even the look in her eyes towards Lin Zion changed. "If you hear any information about her at school, ignore it. Most of it is false. If you don't believe it, you can ask Ro Hosokawa for confirmation." "What happened?" Linnea frowned when she heard this, and grabbed Lin Zion's sleeve and asked. "Yesterday, Ryo Hosokawa fainted due to a high fever during class." Lin Zion revealed a little bit. "There is no airtight wall anyway. A person who faints will definitely occupy the apex of the school's public opinion for at least a short time. It will take 2 days to subside. So when Reina returns to school, she will hear different versions. She will give her an official explanation first, so that at least she will not get involved." After hearing this, Reina looked at him a little strangely. When Lin Zion saw her like this, he smiled and asked, "What's the matter? Why did you take her home when she fainted? And it doesn't look like she has a fever if she can eat 3 bowls of rice." "Well, it's normal to be a little hungry after taking medicine. And it's not like she has never been to our house for dinner. You don't know how much she ate before? Now after 3 bowls, I'm afraid she won't be full." "It seems right." Reina thought for a while, and it seemed that there was really no problem. Lin Zion smiled and said, "How could I lie to you?" The two separated at the school gate, and Yukino Giame, who was waiting at the school gate, pulled him away together. But Matsushita Haru found him. As the two walked on the way to the school, Matsushita Haru suddenly said, "Thank you very much for yesterday." Lin Zion glanced at Matsushita Haru and smiled, "You won't come to me for this matter, right? The girl yesterday is not from an ordinary family. If her parents come to you, you can leave it to us to deal with." "Yeah, got it." Lin Zion didn't react. Matsushita Haru was now delivering a message for Yukino Takemi, but he was quite curious about the level of Hosokawa Ryo's family. If Yukino Takemi said it was not ordinary, it should not be that bad. Now Lin Zion remembered the joke he made before. After all, no matter based on living habits or clothes, you can't judge the level of Hosokawa Ryo's family. Rich people do farm work? Cook for themselves? Are rich people so weird now? Okay, if her parents want to find me, just come to me. I didn't do anything, so you don't need me." Lin Zion's lazy voice came. Compared to Ryo Hosokawa's parents, he was more curious about what new things those stupid classmates could come up with. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 268. After saying goodbye to Haru Matsushita, Lin Zion returned to the classroom alone. Sitting in the back, he could see those people looking over. Some were pretending, some were above board, but they were all looking at him anyway, not just the boys in the class, but also the girls who rarely paid attention to him. And he expected that there would be no shortage of discussions. 80% of the topics they talked about were related to Hosokawa Ryo, and the remaining 20% were about him. Although it is a bit exaggerated to say this, the class has indeed lost the various topics about Jinzi Fujiang in the past. And Jinzi Fujiang herself was not with her small group, but was sitting alone. She no longer had the same feeling of chatting and laughing as before, and her face was a little too stiff. After listening to their words, Shiu shook his head helplessly. These people really went too far. Some of the topics were unpleasant, and they took pleasure in the pain of others. What was even more strange was that no one corrected them, but participated in it. As the person involved, he can't say anything yet. Once it starts, those people will not let this topic go. Only by ignoring them can the topic cool down. This is also the best choice. It stands to reason that most of the people here are from wealthy families, either with good grades or special talents. It is not an exaggeration to use neon flowers to describe them. But now it seems that most of these flowers are dead, and the smell they give off is even more disgusting. Sure enough, the hormonal turmoil of puberty requires heavy academic work to deal with. Lin Zion, who lost interest, slowly closed his eyes. After an emotional drama at Ryo Hosokawa's house, Yuji Hosokawa and Hisai Hosokawa also followed their daughter's advice and returned to the room. However, after returning to the room, the two did not choose to rest. Instead, they sneaked out of the room. Took out a laptop. Ask your friends to send the stuff over. It's been sent, wait a minute. Yuji Hosokawa operated the computer, logged into his mailbox, and soon found an email in it. The thing is quite big. Watching the download reading slowly advance, the two people's hearts fluctuated, until a pop-up window prompting that the download was completed popped up from the lower right corner of the computer. The file contains several documents and a video. Seeing this, Yuji Hosokawa turned to his wife and asked which one to watch first. Video. Hisai Hosokawa reached out and poked the screen. Hosokawa Yuji turned off the sound directly, then clicked on the video. When the video started, he subconsciously looked up at the door, and then looked back at the screen. The video should be a screenshot captured by surveillance. The content on it is Lin Zion holding Ryo Hosokawa that day. The picture quality is not bad, at least the face can be seen clearly. The entire video is edited from multiple shots, almost from the swimming pool to the entrance of the health room. It didn't last long, just a few minutes, and the two people had different reactions after watching it. What is this kid doing? Hosokawa Yuji showed a conflicted expression. He's saving your daughter, came Hosokawa Hisai's voice that was neither salty nor cold. Look at the others. To be honest, the two of them knew the general process of Hosokawa Ryo's incident last night. He also knew that it was Lin Zion who sent people to the health room. He was just a little unhappy when he saw his daughter being picked up by a strange man in the video. But after hearing what his wife said, he had no choice but to exit the video and click on the files one by one. First, a few reports. The first one is a relatively detailed description of the situation in the swimming pool by Haru Matsushita, which roughly restores the situation at that time. It is described throughout the article without any conclusion. The two of them were silent for a moment after seeing it, until Hosokawa Hisai broke the silence. Look, I said it was for this reason. It's not like you don't know how good Ryo is. How could you faint from hunger just because you didn't eat a meal? When saying this, Hisakawa Hosokawa seemed a little impatient. His dignity was gone, and he was obviously very concerned about his daughter's affairs. Keep your voice down, Yuji Hosokawa immediately signaled to her. Hosokawa Hisai turned his head impatiently. Honey, don't be angry. I was wrong. Hosokawa Yuji knew that she was blaming herself, but he really wanted to take the blame. Hosokawa Hisi also knew that it was useless to lose his temper here. He looked at the screen and said, "Watch the next one." Yes, Hosokawa Yuji quickly clicked on the next one. This is a report from Miyazune-ri. It is about what she saw. It is also followed by the school doctor from the health room and others. After reading the reports of several people involved one after another, the two people also had a relatively comprehensive understanding of the matter. This young man named Shigeki Aoda has done a good job. Without him, I don't know what would have happened. Hosokawa Hisi praised Lin Zion after reading it, looking very satisfied. Hosokawa Yuji listened to his wife's praise of this man. Although he didn't want to admit it, this boy had indeed done a lot for his daughter, and he couldn't find anything wrong with him. We need to find an opportunity to meet him, Hosokawa Hisi suddenly said. Hosokawa Yu was stunned for a moment before continuing, "What I want is to thank him properly." Hosokawa Hisi glanced at him without saying anything. He quickly focused his eyes on the screen and asked, "What is that folder?" "I don't know either. It must be related to Ryo, otherwise he wouldn't have sent it together." Yuji Hosokawa opened the folder, and there was a new report on it, the content of which was Rima Yasu's report on Ryo Hosokawa. Some summary of the school. The report started from the first class meeting at the beginning of the school term. The two of them quickly got into it. The report was actually very short, but the content made them dissatisfied and even angry. "Ryo has never told us this." Hosokawa Yuji was a little shocked. Judging from the above words, his daughter seemed to be excluded at school, but Hosokawa Ryo had told them that whenever they asked, she said it was fine. "You know what kind of personality Ryo has, how could she tell you these things?" Hosokawa Hisi did not seem so strange about the above, because she had guessed that her daughter's personality would definitely be like this at school. This is how society is. No. I also want to invest in a school, Hosokawa Yuji said seriously. "We can't let Ryo stay in that place anymore. It's useless. Ryo's personality is definitely not popular in school. You've studied before, and it's the same even if you change schools." Hosokawa Hisi refuted his irrational idea. "The root cause of this matter is Ryo Hosokawa's own problem, plus the problems of this society, which can't be solved by changing schools. Hosokawa Ryo is the key, but his daughter's problem can't be solved by saying it. Hosokawa Hisi has tried to educate his daughter, but it's obvious what happened. If it really worked, it wouldn't have led to the current situation. Then drop out of school. Anyway, Ryo's grades are not likely to get into any good university. My daughter can't bear this." Hisi Hosokawa was silent for a while, and then slowly said, "I think I should take a leave of absence for a while, and then hire a tutor for Ryo." After listening to this, Yuji Hosokawa thought for a moment and agreed to this plan, and then added, "That's fine, but the teacher must be carefully selected, and Ryo can't be wronged again." Hisi Hosokawa looked at the screen, a smile slowly appeared on his face, and said, "I already have a candidate. I will definitely update when I have time to write. I dare not and cannot guarantee anything, but I will definitely continue to write. No matter what the reason is, those who ask me to cut the book, read it if you want to, and don't read it if you don't want to. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 269. You don't want him to be Ryo's teacher, do you? Hosokawa Yuji had a bad feeling. Isn't it possible? I think it's good. Hosokawa Hisi didn't care about Yuichi's words. We can ask him to come to teach Liang after school every day. If you want to repay him, I'll do it. There's no need to make fun of your daughter's studies. Yuji Hosokawa didn't understand what his wife meant, and he tried to persuade her from the sidelines. What a joke. What do you know? Hosokawa Hissy glanced at him, just see if Rio is willing to do this. Don't touch that child alone. Why Hosokawa Yuji was a little dissatisfied, why couldn't he even make contact? Because you don't know how, you will. Hosokawa Hissy waved his hand casually, let's talk to Rio tonight to see if she accepts it. Then what now? Of course it's time to sleep now. After finishing speaking, Hissy Hosokawa stretched his body and said, I'm exhausted. Why did you ask me to come here? Linzayan pushed open the iron door on the roof and looked at Miyazune-ri, who was leaning against the fence in front of him, and turned to look into the distance. Here we come. Miyazune-ri didn't turn around, just turned her back to him. If you have anything to say, please tell me quickly. I have to go to eat. Linzayan walked over, his tone a bit impatient. I wanted to see him for something, but I didn't tell him in advance. I called him suddenly during the meal and asked him to come over. He had only eaten half of the meal. Who wouldn't be angry? If there is no serious matter, just see how Linzayan punishes her. Miyazune-ri turned around and took off her sunglasses, revealing two big dark circles under her eyes. What did you do? Did you get beaten by your sister? Linzayan almost laughed out loud when he looked at her. You're still laughing. Miyazune-ri walked over quickly and said to him, it's not you who caused this. What does it have to do with me? I didn't hit you. Linzayan teased with a smile. If it weren't for writing your report, I wouldn't have slept all night. Report? Could it be about Hosokawa-san? Linzayan thought about it for a while, and it could only be the case of Rio Hosokawa. Yes, you are responsible for this. Hey. Wait, Linzayan interrupted her quickly and asked, what do you mean I am responsible? You should explain clearly first. The reports I wrote are all related to you, what do you think? My report? Didn't you just say it was Hosokawa-san? 2 copies, one for you and one for Hosokawa-san. Gongzong-ri pointed at Linzayan, and the meaning was self-evident. Then what? Linzayan was not surprised. Haradu Matsushita said that Rio Hosokawa's family was not an ordinary family. If such a big thing happened, her school would definitely have to give an explanation to her parents, and her participation in it would definitely attract attention. The other person wants to know that they are normal. What's more, he doesn't care at all. If Yukino Tekkai doesn't let go, how much does she, Miyazune-ri, know? Linzayan's calm reaction made Gongzong-ri a little uncomfortable. I heard that her family is powerful, aren't you worried? Linzayan came next to her, pressed his hands on the fence, looked down and said, I haven't done anything harmful to God, so what am I afraid of? What's more, your class concept doesn't work here, rich people are human beings too. You're really not afraid of those people? Miyazune-ri suddenly appeared quite confident and walked next to him and said, you must save me. I knew it. Linzayan already knew that Gongzong-ri would never find him if nothing happened. I don't think you need to worry so much. You can tell from Hosokawa-san's family that his family is probably a pretty good person, and you didn't do anything wrong. They shouldn't blame you. I don't know either. Miyazune-ri thought of what her sister said to her last night, and felt a little at a loss for a moment. You might as well go to Hosokawa Rio to find me. At least she can talk to you. You should be fine with her here. My sister is going to take me to meet Rio Hosokawa's parents after school. Let's see then. I hope the situation is not so bad. Gongzong-ri also heard that Linzayan did not want to get involved in this matter, and she did not have the ability to ask him. If there's nothing else to do, I'll leave first. Linzayan looked at her and there was no need to stay. I just hope I won't cause trouble to my sister. Okay. Linzayan glanced at her and said, things may not be as pessimistic as you think. Leaving these words will only make him leave. He has already gotten out of this matter, so there is no need to go in again. Wish yourself luck. Miyazune-ri watched Chiu disappear into the corridor, and took out her cell phone with her other hand and rubbed it. Is this a rich person's home? Miyazune sighed as she looked at the small villa in front of her. Let's go, I've already made an appointment. Miyazune Miho looked at the word Hosokawa on the door plate, said hello and rang the doorbell. Not long after, a middle-aged man dressed casually opened the door and came out. When he saw the two of them, he asked, "Who is Ryo's teacher?" "It's me." Miyazune took a step forward and said to Hosokawa Yuji, "I am Ryo's homeroom teacher. I came here today to see how Ryo is recovering." "Then who is this, Yuji?" Hosokawa looked at Miho Miyazune, who was standing aside. "This is my sister. She heard that Hosokawa-san fell ill and came with me to visit. We are very familiar with Ryo." "Hello, my name is Miyaso Miho." Miyaso Miho walked up to Hosokawa Yuji and extended her hand. "Hello, I'm Ryo's father, Hosokawa Yuji." Hosokawa Yuji shook his hand and nodded to the other party. "Who's here?" a female voice came from the house. "It's Ryo's teacher who came to visit Ryo." Hosokawa Yuji turned around and shouted, then opened the door and made way, "Please come in." "Excuse me." ×2. The decoration style of the whole villa is quite modern, highlighting one word: white. The two people who came in found that the house was even brighter than the outside, and unlike the simple and clean Lindsay Ian's house, there were many decorations here that looked worth a lot of money. It was even more obvious when compared with the white walls. The pattern of the rich is different, and the house from decoration to furnishings reveals a majestic feeling. Miyaso felt that she looked smaller after coming in. "Teachers, sit here." Hosokawa Hissy walked out from the side with a tea tray in his hand. "Excuse me." Miyamoto Miho quickly pulled her sister, who was a little stunned, over. Hosokawa Hissy smiled and led the two to the living room, then said, "I'll go call Ryo out." My Retirement Life in Neon. Author, Wu Nangkuang Song. Chapter 270. There was no surprise when Ryo Hosokawa came out to see Miyazune. This home visit had been agreed upon a long time ago. "Hello, teacher." "Ryo, are you okay?" Miyazune knew the importance of Hosokawa Ryo, and greeted her as soon as she came out. People who didn't know her warm look really thought she had a good relationship with Hosokawa Ryo. "Teachers, drink tea." Hosokawa Hissy's voice came at the right time, interrupting Miyazune's performance, and pulled Hosokawa Ryo to sit across from them. Miyazune felt a little embarrassed for a moment and could only return to her seat with a smile. Seeing his sister in this state, Miyazune Miho could only take the topic and said, "We are relieved to see that Ryo Hosokawa-san is fine. I've made you both worried. Our teacher has to thank the teacher for his hard work on Ryo." Hosokawa Hissy held his daughter's hand and said to the Miyazune sisters with a smile, "It's okay. This is what we should do." Both parties talked a lot of nonsense, and suddenly Hissy Hosokawa said to his daughter, who was wandering aside, "If you are tired, go back to your room first. Teacher, I will just say hello to your father." Hosokawa Ryo was indeed a little tired of these meaningless conversations, and he was used to obeying his mother's words, so he went back to the room without thinking much. After she left, Hosokawa Hissy, who was still polite at first, suddenly became serious. He glanced at Hosokawa Yuji, who had been silent for a long time, and then asked, "What's going on with our Ryo at school?" Next to him, Yuji Hosokawa also took out the report he had prepared a long time ago and handed it to Miyazune Miho. Miyazune was taking the lead in speaking just now, while Miyamune and Yuji Hosokawa were both watching from the side. The difference is that one doesn't want to speak, and the other doesn't dare to speak. Miyazune Miho took the report, but did not open it, because she was at the side when Miyazune rewrote this, and she knew very well what was written on it. And she has tried her best to fix it, but it is too easy to verify this kind of thing, and she cannot allow them to write it randomly. It will be even more troublesome if they are caught because of this. I know this. Are you going to ignore what happened to my daughter at school? Hosokawa Hissy asked. My sister is Li Yang's class teacher. I have talked to her about this many times, but she has not been bullied. You can ask Li Yang to confirm this. Cold violence is also violence. Hosokawa Hisai's mother is like a dynamite barrel. Once someone lights the fuse of Hosokawa Ryo, she will explode. Parent, please calm down. There is nothing we can do about this matter. The school cannot force others. Miyazune Miho was also helpless. She had seen many similar parents. Once it came to their own children, it was normal to be unreasonable and make trouble, and not many of them were truly reasonable. Both sides insisted on their own opinions, but Miyamune Miho was not Miyamune Ri, and it was easier to deal with it. After talking for a long time, there was no substantial progress. Originally, Miyazune Miho thought it was almost done, and when the time came, it would be enough to ask his sister to go up and bow and apologize. But she didn't expect that Hosokawa Hisai directly proposed to suspend school. Mrs. Hosokawa, are you sure you want Ryo-san to suspend school? That's right, I think it's not much better at school, and I still have to be bullied. After thinking for a moment, Miyazune Miho also said, of course, you have the right to do this, but it depends on Ryo's wishes. If she agrees, the school can handle the suspension of study procedures. It was already after 5 o'clock when the two sisters left the villa. They chatted for 2 hours, although most of them were talking nonsense. Sister, didn't you mean? Miyazune Ri looked at Miyazune Miho as if he was hesitant to speak. We are teachers, we haven't reached that point yet. Gongzong Miho shook his head, and this family seems to be quite well educated, so it shouldn't implicate us. She was so fierce just now, she scared me to death. It should be fine. Gongzong Miho couldn't explain clearly. Although this matter had little to do with them, and they had done everything they should have done, no one could explain clearly. As for the conversation just now, you can still feel that the other party has been very restrained, which shows that this rich man is not the kind of nouveau riche. Thinking of the conversation just now, Miyazune Miho asked with some confusion, why does she want Shigeki Aoda's information? Who knows, maybe she should thank him properly. After all, he was the one who saved Hosokawa-san. Maybe. Thinking of that strange boy, Miyazune Miho felt a little strange for some reason. At this time, in the room, Hisai Hosokawa was talking to Yuji Hosokawa. Honey, why do you want that boy's address? Don't worry about this. Go and check this child's parents, see who else is in his family, and then find a time to ask him out for a talk. Hosokawa Hisai held a piece of paper, which was the name of Gongzong just now. The phone number and address rewrote down. Thank you, others don't need this. Hosokawa Yuji heard this and complained, you are looking for a son-in-law. Don't worry about it. I just think this young man is quite pleasing to my eye. Let's see if his family needs any help. The friendship between our Hosokawa family cannot be underestimated by others. Okay. Then why don't you go? Hosokawa Hisai handed the note over. I know. Hosokawa Yuji reluctantly took the note, then turned and walked to the room. Isn't it very simple to check a person? Just make a phone call. What's the rush? Hosokawa Hisai thought for a moment before getting up and walking to his daughter's room. Leo, I'm coming in. Pushing open the door, she saw her daughter lying on the bed holding a novel. When Ryo Hosokawa saw her mother coming in, she quickly put down the novel, stood up and sat on the bed, and said, Mother. Okay, you don't have to do this anymore. Hosokawa Hisai raised his hand and pressed it softly. She felt that she was not worthy of being called a mother to her daughter, and she actually waited until now to realize her daughter's usual situation. At first I thought it would be solved by changing the environment, but unexpectedly something almost happened. Thank you. Mom will never force you to do something you don't like again. Hisai Hosokawa sat on the edge of the bed and held his daughter's hand. Mother, what's wrong? Hosokawa Hisai's performance made Hosokawa Ryo feel uncomfortable. Don't worry, I'll find a way. Hosokawa Hisi was talking to himself, while Hosokawa Ryo on the side was now full of question marks. In the past, her mother didn't like her reading detective novels and would say something to her every time she read them. But what happened today? And he was saying strange things, so why are you trying to figure it out?